Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women. That is good. That is good.
Hey guys, James here again with another Civ 6 guide, and today I want to talk about the Barbarian Clans mode. Barbarian Clans is an additional game mode which was added back in 2021, and it was made available to all players. Barbarian Clans takes everyone's favorite nuisance and expands how they work and the types of interactions you can perform with them, allowing you to make both love and war. So, without further ado, let's dive in and learn more about these. So first, as the name implies, the mode makes it so that each barbarian outpost is its own unique clan, with their own name and banner. Across your games you might meet clans with riveting names like Tiger Fang, Bear Tree, and
This is Flaming Dragon!
Any unit which the outpost spawns will also be tagged as belonging to that clan, and you can hover over the unit to determine where they came from. Each clan will also fall into one of 7 types. The name they receive is actually based on their types, so with enough experience you might start to recognize them. While as a whole, barbarians largely still operate the same as in normal games, there are some differentiating factors that make each clan type a bit different from the others. Flatland clans will usually spawn in open flatland. They tend to have spearmen defending their outposts, but I've also seen them use ranged units as well. They generally favor spawning melee units, but aren't afraid of getting some range in the mix. Woodland clans will usually spawn on or next to woods and rainforest tiles, and seem to prefer using ranged units to guard their outposts. As a whole, they tend to favor ranged units, but are willing to use both. Hills clans will usually spawn on hills without features. I usually see them use warriors to defend their outpost, and they will pretty much exclusively use melee units. Rover clans are interesting in that they require a nearby source of horses, and will usually place outposts in open terrain. They use spearmen to defend their outposts, but otherwise will prefer to use cavalry over anything else. Chariot clans similarly also require a nearby source of horses, but they will usually have their outposts in deserts. This makes them a rarer sight than rover clans. Otherwise, they are similar to rover clans, preferring to use mounted units. Jungle clans require a nearby ivory resource, and as a result, they tend to be a bit more rare than other clan types. They'll usually spawn on jungle tiles with warriors defending their outposts. They favor cavalry units, but aren't afraid to get some melee and range units in there as well. Finally, seafaring clans will spawn on coastal tiles, which makes them one of the more common clans you'll meet. They usually defend their outposts with spearmen, but outside of that, they exclusively spawn naval units. In my experience, their naval units love attacking anything in the water, but weirdly, I found that they generally would not attack my cities, even if the city was open and undefended. Keep in mind, everything I described before is how they usually behave, and also from my experiences in testing, but things might not always play out that way. So how else are barbarians changed? In Barb clans, barbarians will scale up faster in technology than normal. In normal games, barbarians will unlock units and technologies when half the players research it, but in this mode, as long as any one player researches the required tech, or gets its Eureka, barbarians will now be able to spawn those units. So, for example here, even though I haven't researched Apprenticeship yet, because I got the Eureka for it, I can actually buy men-at-arms off these flatland clans. This can make barbs extra scary if one civ starts to run away in science. Additionally, barbarian clans will be able to produce unique units from civilizations not selected in that game. In my testing, I actually found that individual clans can actually spawn multiple unique units across the game, such as this clan which was able to spawn Kree, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, Okitsata, Greek hoplites, and Persian immortals. Quite an interesting combination.
Madman. You're a madman.
Unlike with normal units which require one civ to research the appropriate technology, unique units actually become available to the barbarian camp once the entire world reaches the age they belong to. So for example here, neither player has researched or Eureka'd swordsmen, but these camps are still able to spawn immortals and now Mobeba, again, hope I pronounced that correctly, because the world has entered the classical era. Another major change is that barbarians won't stay so uncivilized. Now, with enough time and care, they'll be able to establish themselves as city-states. Above each outpost there will be this bar which will slowly fill up each turn. Once filled, the outpost will convert into a hot, new city-state in your area.
Just a small town girl. Moved to the big city with big dreams.
Any units the clan spawned will also be converted. An interesting thing I learned in my testing from saves coming a bunch is that the order of the city-states that clans convert to seems to be predefined per game. So, for example, in this file I was playing, while the order of which clans converted first wasn't always the same, sometimes it was the Red Reef clan, sometimes it was the Sea Ghost clan, but the order of which city-state was selected to spawn in always seemed to follow the same order. Obviously, the city-states chosen will differ game to game, but the order always seems to be consistent, even if you reload your game. I don't know if this is useful information, but I just found it interesting. If the Barb camp is within 3 tiles of another city, it won't be able to convert due to city placement rules. Additionally, if during game setup you set the number of city-states to 0, this will also prevent any camps from converting. When the city-state is first established, you have a chance of getting the meeting bonus, which grants you a free envoy. However, in my testing, I found that the reward seems pretty random. It wasn't based on the first civ to meet the Barbarians originally, or whoever is the closest to the city-state either. I thought it might have been based on whoever had the closest unit, but I don't think that's quite right either. Regardless, you can actually influence how slowly or quickly a city-state might convert, as different interactions you perform with the clans will affect their conversion progress. This can be done through the new types of interactions you can perform with our little friends, which were greatly expanded in this mode. For example, now, when you move a unit into an empty outpost, instead of automatically dispersing it, you now get one of 2 choices. If you want to rid yourself of the nuisance, you can disperse the clan, which destroys the outpost, gives you 3 era score if it was within 6 tiles of one of your cities, or 2 era score if it was outside that range. It also grants the dispersing unit 10 XP, and you even have a random chance of getting a Eureka. However, you'll no longer be able to get gold from doing this. Instead, if you're looking to line your coffers, you can raid the outpost, which will leave it intact, but grant you a sum of gold. The next turn, the outpost will perform a reprisal attack, which spawns a unit in the outpost and kicks your units out. Additionally, you can now bribe clans to prevent them from attacking your cities for 20 turns.
Well, maybe this'll help.
I really don't think I should.
This action doesn't actually prevent them from attacking your units though. Instead, you can think of it as enforcing your borders, kicking out barbarians from your lands and preventing them from pillaging you. Bribing them will add 8 points towards conversion. I personally don't think bribing is all too useful unless you find yourself in an emergency and unable to defend. You can also hire units from the clan for a sum of gold. The gold it costs to hire a unit will always be cheaper than if you were to purchase it from your own cities, so this is actually pretty useful should the need arise. The unit will spawn under your control near one of your cities and you can keep it forever. Units you can hire will even include the unique units that belong to the clan, or higher tech units which were unlocked by the clan. The clan type you hire from dictates what is available for purchase. This action will add 5 points towards civilizing and can only be performed once every 15 turns for any one clan. An interaction which is more fun on paper than how it actually plays out is the Incite action.
Hey! Riot!
This will cost a decent amount of gold and will make the clan attack the designated civilization or city-state.
Supposedly.
The clan has to have met the target before you try to do this. Inciting will cause the clan to lose 5 points towards civilizing, and it can only be performed once every 15 turns. If someone does this to you, you'll actually get a notification saying an unknown civ incited barbarians against you. But interestingly, in multiplayer, it'll actually display who performed the action on you if you hover over the units. This unfortunately means you probably can't be too sneaky about inciting in multiplayer games, but inciting won't affect your relationship with AI civs, so it's probably more viable there. So in my original script, I spent some time here complaining about how few units barbarians would spawn after you performed an incite action, but then I decided, why not try to test this out? So I ran a couple of tests and learned a few things about the game mode and maybe barbarians in general. First is that, when left to their own devices, barbarian unit spawn rates seem to be quite consistent and dependent on the type of clan it is. Seafaring and Flatland clans seem to spawn a new unit every 10 turns, Hills and Woods clans seem to spawn a new unit every 15 turns, and finally, Jungle, Chariot, and Rover clans seem to spawn a new unit every 20 turns. Second, there seems to be a soft cap on the number of units a clan can have at a time. In my testing, this seems to be 7 total units, including the unit guarding the outpost. However, both the spawn rate and the number of available units seems to be affected once you get major civs into play. It seems to me that meeting and engaging a major civ causes their spawn rate to become more aggressive. Unfortunately, my testing was a bit inconclusive regarding whether the inciting action itself makes a difference with regards to spawn rate, as it seems that just running into major civs already seems to have a bit of an effect of its own. Overall, I'd say your mileage will likely vary with inciting, and so it might be a safer bet to only incite if you know that that particular clan has a strong army already. I do have one conclusion though, and it's that the Barbarian AI is quite poor. Incited units don't really have any sense of purpose and will attack anything nearby, including your units, and I've incited clans only for their units to chase mine around or wander back and forth aimlessly.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
So, after testing, my conclusion is still more or less exactly the same, that inciting, to me, is mostly useless. It's truly a shame because inciting is such a fun idea, but in actuality, it ends up quite underwhelming and far too pricey for what it is. I also found the interaction to be a bit finicky. There were instances where one side could incite against the other, but not the other way around. I think discovering the camp alone won't count, and you need to have your units meet the barbarian units. Finally, how many times has this happened to you? You're just minding your own business, trying to settle your next city, only to realize
I've made a huge mistake.
Barbarians taking civilians is a tale as old as Civ. In Barbarian Clans, you can now actually ransom the captured unit, costing you a sum of gold based on the unit taken.
$50 million? And who you think you kidnapped, Chelsea Clinton?
This will cause the clan to relinquish the unit back to you, but also make them lose progress towards civilizing. The gold costs of all these interactions will vary, but I found that clans of the same type will have the same costs, although there may be different units available depending on the unique units they select. And yeah, I think that's all the mechanics the mode really adds, and so here I just want to quickly share a couple of thoughts on the mode. In my opinion, this mode isn't as impactful or game-changing as others, which, depending on what you're looking for from the extra game modes, isn't necessarily a bad thing. There are some things I like, of course, like giving yourself access to cheaper and unique units, which can definitely be useful if you need to defend or rush. It can also be funny defending against barbs with what are effectively their own units. Having camps that you can repeatedly raid is nice too, giving you a consistent way of gaining experience and gold every 10 turns. However, I personally don't find the other interactions all that useful. Most seem a bit pricey, and not all that effective. Not only that, but at higher difficulties, I feel like the AI are strong enough to deter barbarians pretty easily. I could be wrong, but I don't really see the AI using these new interactions much at all either. Also, I'm not sure if this is specifically due to the mode, but I did sometimes find barbarians acting a bit strange. Sometimes barb scouts would just wander around randomly rather than return to their camp, even if I wasn't trying to stop them. Are you lost there, buddy? Sometimes they would just leave their camp totally undefended, and these weren't cases where I was trying to bait the defender out with a slinger. The whole city-state conversion mechanic is cool, but I find that most never make it that far, especially when they're playing with the big boys.
Oh, that's pretty.
Most outposts can't even stand up against city-states. Generally, the only clans that I find manage to civilize themselves are the isolated tribes who spawn on distant islands or in the New World. I think maybe you can play a fun little mini-game where you can babysit an outpost until they grow up to be big and strong, but it's not like they'll understand or appreciate what you did for them either.
Oh, I gave my life to my children on a silver platter. And this is how he repays me.
But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have for you today. Let me know down below in the comments if I maybe missed any mechanics or if you have any interesting tidbits or experiences with the mode. And of course, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much and please consider clicking some of those buttons. And as usual, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.